Hi, welcome to this evening's Singer Island Quarterly Town Hall meeting. I know a lot of you are watching online, and we have a few people here brave enough to come out, and we're happy to see you this evening. We have a jam-packed agenda, so we'll get started. I've reversed the order a little bit, and first we're going to hear from the Riviera Beach Utility Special District. We'll have an update on the water plant, on the water treatment plant, and a number of other things. And I'm going to pass this microphone over to Assistant City Manager Deirdre Jacobs for her to introduce her team.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. We have one additional staff person that's supposed to be joining us this evening, so they may enter the room, and you'll see them as they come in, and they will be here to apprise you of where we are with regards to the force main and water main projects that affect the Singer Island residents. But as part of the utility special districts and its purpose here in the City of Riviera Beach, we're seriously concerned with the quality of water that is shared with our residents in terms of how the water is treated at the plant, how the distribution system is maintained, and also the sewer collection system, even though that wasn't a part of the agenda for this evening. So although those are the three areas that we partake in at the district, we'll only discuss at least one of those in great detail this evening, and that's the water plant operations. So here, as a part of our staff, we do work as a team, and we work in a collaborative manner in order to effectuate just good, positive work experiences, as well as the production of quality water on behalf of our residents. So Mr. Danford is here, and he's our existing water plant superintendent. Mr. Danford is due to retire in July of this year. And I think he's been with the city for maybe 30 years. Okay. So next to Mr. Danford is Mr. Batista. Mr. Batista serves in the capacity of Assistant Director of the Utility District. Next to Mr. Batista is Mr. Melvin Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney will be replacing Mr. Danford as the water plant superintendent. And then the newest member to our staff is Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams is a compliance person who ensures that all of our operations comply with the different regulatory agencies that we're responsible to. And then next to me is Mr. Armstrong. He's the district's engineer. So with that said, we all understand, and we would like to make you aware of, even though our plant has infrastructure issues, being that it has been around for a really long period of time. From my understanding, it dates back to the 1950s. So just as, you read about our district and its challenges, there are also other districts that have the same infrastructure challenges. Not that that's a reason to brag about, but that is what it is, and that is what exists at our utility district. So as we move forth, we recognize those challenges, but at the same time, we do what we can to make sure that those challenges are taken care of for the betterment of the product that we're mainly there to produce, and that is quality water. So with that said, we're going to talk about various issues that are all centered on that. We have a consent order that is in place with the Department of Health that we're adamantly working to comply with. We have a cross-connection program that about 3 of our staff members will be intimately involved in, making sure that we administer and implement that program, and that's in accordance with the Florida statutes. We also have a conservation program that we're going to work in cooperation with Dr. Botel in order to make sure that we can apprise you and begin to institute some types of measures where we begin to realize the importance of the quality of, realize the importance of conservation when it comes to our water system. So with that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Danford and Mr. Pinckney if they can just apprise you, give you some knowledge as to how you're able to, when you review our webpage, you're able to interpret the different types of reports that are presented on our webpage on a monthly basis. And those reports primarily tell you that no matter what is going on at the utility district in terms of the challenges, the water, it sincerely is, there is no harm to you in terms of your health. There's no public safety issues that exist. If there were, you would see it in the reports that are done on a regular basis that are presented to the Department of Health and published on our webpage for you to be able to see and to interpret.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. My name is David Danford. I've been at the city at the water treatment plant for 30 years. At the water treatment plant, we use 4 chemicals to treat the water. We use chlorine and ammonia for disinfection purposes, and we use lime and polymer to help clear the water. And we understand our water, it has some color in it. Currently, the water treatment plant doesn't do a very good job of removing that color, but the water is safe. We pull about 42 samples throughout the city every month, take it to an outside laboratory who run the analysis, and they'll let us know if the sample's clear of bacteria or is it positive of bacteria. And most of the samples that came back clear. Last year we might have had a couple, but they were absolutely not on Sing Island. Every 3 months we have other samples that the laboratory does. And all those samples are reported to the local health department, and everything is good with those samples. We also sample our well water, the water that's poured out the ground. We sample that for bacteriologicals, to make sure that water is clear. Even before it's treated, we have to test it for bacteria, and that's done monthly also. We are making some operational adjustments at the plant. As Ms. Jacobs mentioned, the plant is very old, and the city is committed to building a new plant. But we're making some operational changes to improve the quality, and I'll let Mr. Batista explain the details of those improvements.
Hey there. So when it comes to the improvements at the water treatment plant, we recognize as a utility that we couldn't just wait for the new plant to be built. We wanted the water quality to be improved now. And so when it comes to the major construction efforts at the water plant, it's over $10 million being invested across the entire water plant. So every major process is being invested in. So essentially everything is improved, from the turbidity to the color to the hardness. Everything about the water ends up being better once these processes are improved. But of course, when you work with a water treatment plant, it's not so simple as when you change something in your home. We're talking about complex treatment processes that require contractors, engineers, and working hand in hand with our operations staff to make sure everything goes according to plan. So essentially, with all of this work being done on all these different levels, we are expecting that water quality is going to begin to improve this year. And so as each month goes by and we get closer to substantial completion of each system, we're going to see a boost in our water quality. So by the beginning of next year, most of the projects will be complete, and you'll see the fruits of our labor play out.
My name is Melvin Pinckney. I'm going to be taking over for Mr. Danford when he leaves. Mr. Danford's been around the plant, as he stated. He's been there a long time, 30 years. But I spent 29 and a half years at the city of Boynton Beach. Got introduced to water treatment in 1989. So I saw a few things. I've been around, and we have some challenges, but the plant where I'm at now is the water is safe, but we have some challenges because the plant is so old. So we constantly repairing, doing repairs if we need to do repairs. So it's daily operations. Sometimes we averaging somewhere around 8.5 MGD a day. Sometimes we average about 10 million gallons a day. And we trying to make sure that the units that we have are still functioning. So it's a challenge for us sometimes, but our main goal as water professionals is to have the best quality water that we can. We're certified by the state. We can be held to the fire for doing something wrong because we're certified. So I just like to say to the residents, we are doing the best job we can. We are spending money to keep the water safe to drink. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Williams. I am the compliance officer for the Utility Special District. I studied public administration, so my doctorate is in public administration. Majority of my research is in conservation, water conservation and water policy. So I am going to be one of the main individuals that's going to be heading over the cross-connection control program that we're pushing to implement into the city, as well as the water conservation that we're going to create when it deals with outreach programs for every one of the residents. When it comes to the water conservation, well, first let me start with cross-connection. When it comes to cross-connection is a very serious issue because when you have cross-connections, it can contaminate the public water supply. What that means is that everything that goes into your homes starts to go backwards, and it can affect the resident who is living directly next to you. So if you have car washes, different companies have different chemicals. If something happens and the pressure changes, that water starts to go in the opposite direction. Everything that is inside their lines will now enter into your homes. That is the purpose of cross-connection. It is something that is mandated and regulated by the state of Florida. It is required by the federal EPA. So we are pushing to really implement these strategies to ensure that our public water system is safe. We are going to work very diligently to ensure that we get it onto at least commercial properties, but it would be in our best interest as the city of Riviera Beach to make sure that every home also has a device to protect yourself and your neighbors. It's not something that's going to be very expensive. It's very cost efficient, and we can't put a price on our water supply or our lives. So I think that's going to be something very important that's going to be coming to the city very soon. As far as water conservation is going to be something very important because we know that South Florida is only growing in population. And as it continues to grow and we continue to pull water from the current aquifer we're pulling from, it's only going to dry out more and more. And as we continue to experience dry seasons like we're doing right now, the water is not replenishing. So we have to pull from an even lower aquifer. And to do that, we have to dig new wells, which is going to come with the new treatment facility. But in the meantime, as residents, we can all do our part to ensure water conservation. So I'm going to be working diligently with the utility department to create an outreach when it comes to water conservation. We can do our part as the utility, but residents can also do their parts when it comes to implementing devices and fixtures that are water efficient in your home, having moisture sensors and devices, evapotranspiration devices on your irrigation systems. And there's so much that we can do. So I'm definitely going to work hard to ensure that everyone understands how we can enforce conservation in our homes, but it has to start with us. And as far as the compliance side of things, I do work diligently with the utility administration to ensure that the water is very safe and that we comply with every federal regulation, state regulation, and local regulation that is required of us. As my colleagues have stated, we do test the water every month. We do some testing on a quarterly basis, and I can assure you that the water is safe, and it is very safe to use and consume. There's nothing wrong with the water supply. For those who don't know, water in South Florida and the current aquifer that we pull from is naturally a yellow color. That's just the color of the groundwater, and that is the reason why we use the chemicals we use to try to improve the color of it. But there has to be a chemical balance. So we do our part with operations to ensure that the water is safe, treated, and ready to enter into your homes.
Hello, my name is John Armstrong. I'm an engineer with the City of Beach Utility District, and Ms. Jacobs asked me to update you all on 2 projects. We currently have 2 drinking water mains. The water plant is on the mainland, and so there's 2 water mains that cross the intercoastal waterway that serves the island, Singer Island, Town of Palm Beach Shores, and also Phil Foster Park. And there's only one wastewater force main for the wastewater that pumps back to the mainland and over to the Central Regional Water Reclamation Facility. So we have one project which is to replace one of the 2 water mains. We'll probably keep the water main as a backup. We'll test it first, but we retain the Chen Moore and Associates to do a study, and they evaluated 4 different options for routes for the water main and for the force main, and they looked at operation and maintenance, regulatory concerns, constructability, cost, impact to the community, and easement acquisition. And so where we're at right now is we narrowed it down to the certain routes, but we had 2 outstanding easements at this point, and the owners, for one for the water main and one for the force main, said that certain things had to occur before they would provide those easements. So I learned about an hour and a half to 2 hours ago that one of those things that had occurred for the owner to give the easement for the water main has occurred. So I'll be contacting that owner so we can move forward with that. The force main, the property owner said they're not ready to give it at this point. So we're still working with that property owner to see if they think they can provide the easement sooner. But we've also I've contacted some other. There was another route that was about the same cost, and it was another good option, but it looked like that may have more problems with easement acquisition. So we're contacting 3 other property owners to see if they can provide an easement, and still work with the other property owner to see if they can do it sooner. So that's the status of those 2 projects.
And lastly, I want to bring to your attention that we've been working over the last few months with a consultant to assist us with the construction of a new water treatment plant. So hopefully within the next 36 months or even less, we'll have a new water treatment plant facility and be able to provide a higher quality of water as a result of that particular activity. So we can take any questions that you may have of us at this time.
So the state of Florida and the EPA has certain levels that we cannot exceed that calls water safe and unsafe. There's a threshold that says what side is safe and what side is unsafe. I'll give you an example. Chlorine, for example. The chlorine in the water, they recommend it to be at under 4 parts per million, but a minimum of 0.6 parts per million. They say that anything higher than 4 parts per million can start to reach an unsafe if you consume too much of it over time. But when it comes to quality, quality is actually improving the way it looks. So I take color, for example. Color is a secondary contaminant. It doesn't affect your health. The color of the water, once we get a new treatment facility, the color of the water won't affect your health. However, a new treatment facility will improve the color of the water. So lime softening, because of the age of it being an older technique to treat water, it doesn't do the best job possible to give you the best color. However, what the city will bring to you will give you almost water as good or clear as bottled water because of the technique that we're going to be putting in place at that point. So again, the water is safe because we're meeting regulations. However, quality is a separate standard when it comes to, you know, a lot of the cosmetic types of things.
Quick question. The actual infrastructure for the water and sewer lines coming into Singer Island and on Singer Island, are there any plans to start replacing them? You know, we had a couple of breaks. We've got a couple of major buildings that are going to be coming online. Okay, we've got a water main that are, what, 100 years old, some of these pipes, sewers and water. Are there any plans to work on the ancient infrastructure?
Hi, John Armstrong again. The older water mains are in the town of Palm Beach Shores. Singer Island, the water mains are quite newer. So we do have a project that has gone out for bid and should start construction in a couple of months. But it's in the town of Palm Beach Shores. It's from Lake Drive, from the town of Palm Beach Shores further south and all the way to the end, and then all the way on the southern Inlet Drive. That's a project that we have right now.
Right, but how old are the lines here? And you got multiple buildings that have been approved in the last 10 years that are putting added stress on those pipes that are at least 80 years old in Singer Island. At least.
Well, the pipes, most of them are, the water plant was built in the 1950s, so most of the water mains in the town of Palm Beach Shores was constructed in the 1950s. Singer Island, there's some in the 1960s, but most of them are in the 1970s and later, so they're closer. The older ones are like 50 years old.
Over time, will those come online to be replaced and upgraded?
Well, we like to replace the older ones first, so
After the Palm Beach Shores ones are done, then at some point the ones for Singer Island will be replaced?
well, there are a lot of, in the eastern and central part of the mainland of the city, most of those were installed in the 1950s. So, you know, as we have capital improvement projects for the roads, replace the roads, upgrade them, we try and do, it's more cost effective to replace the water and sewer lines. We line the sewer lines instead of replace them. It's cheaper. But so most of them in Singer Island are newer than the majority of the water mains in this city.
Right, I understand that, but the point is, when they were placed in the ground back then, all these multi-hundred-unit buildings were not approved. So now you got a larger development going in for an infrastructure that was not built to withstand that much water pressure going in and going out. That's all I'm asking. If somebody would just take a look at it, look at what's been approved, look what's coming online, and then maybe we can get an answer.
There also is a water and sewer lines that are currently under construction in one of the subdivisions in Singer Island, and there's plans for another subdivision. We've replaced, I guess in the last 2 years, we replaced some water mains in subdivisions in Singer Island, like 5 streets. And then there's also that maybe on the next year's CIP is on Ocean Drive, North Ocean Drive, from on the northern side, putting another parallel water main.
So if I could add to that, that's what's called concurrency. And whenever new developments are come into our development services department to be reviewed, those plans go through the utility special district, and our engineers review them to determine the magnitude of how those developments have an impact on the infrastructure that exists within the city. So we're responsible, and at the utility district, primarily the engineers, they're responsible for signing off on those particular plans to say whether or not or how those developments affect our existing infrastructure systems. We keep note of that, and we ensure that over time, as we develop our capital improvement plans, that we pay attention to those types of issues. So the answer to your question is yes.
Just one quick one. Mr. Armstrong mentioned a requirement for an easement for the water line, and you're having difficulty to get that. Did I understand that?
Well, we did have one main. We need two easements, and basically one of them was the county, Bill Foster Park. Thank you. And you know, the county said that they would give us the easement, and then there was another one that just within the last couple of hours, one of the property owners said that they would give us an easement, but something had to occur first. And about a couple of hours ago, I just heard that what they wanted to occur first has happened. So I'll be contacting that property owner, and so that should go through pretty smoothly. But the force main, we've
Why does the city need to get an easement from a private entity for public infrastructure? We can't use eminent domain to tell them that the easement's going to happen anyway?
yes, sir. That's one of three options. One is, will you just give it to us? Second option is to, if they won't, to. We also have contacted several real estate companies that specialize in easement acquisition. You know, the DOT uses them, and so that would be one, is to give it, them to praise the property, or you know, the before and after effects with the easement, and then make a fair offer to the property owner. It doesn't look like we'll need to do that for the water main. That if we, for the force main, with the current property owner that we're working with, if we're going to get it sooner, that we'd have, you know, we're going to pursue that option. But also we have contacted several other property owners to see if they would be amenable to it.
But the answer to your question is yes.
They have other options. We're just trying to read
That's just right. That's the last resort.
And that'll take longer. That would get into the courts, and hopefully doesn't go that route.
Well, I want to thank the utility district for being with us. Very nice. So I guess we got the message. The water is safe. I don't think they have to say it 4 or 5 more times. It's a big concern for people, obviously, because, you know, without water, there is no life. So we're always concerned about that. And thank you, gentlemen, and Ms. Jacobs, for being here. And I know you have other places you need to be, so we'll excuse you. Thanks. So next on our agenda, or actually it was first on our agenda, I see that Mr. Jonathan Evans is here. I also see that Omari Hardy is here. Stand up and say hi, Omari. Omari is a candidate for District 20 in the Alcee Hastings seat. And I see Miss Billy Brooks here, and Billy Brooks is going to be a candidate for mayor in the city in the next election. So welcome to those two candidates and potentially future office holders. On the agenda next, we're going to talk about infrastructure, and we'll welcome Scott Evans. And I think we're going to ask Scott to go first, because I know Scott has another engagement in this. Then Mr. Evans will talk about other projects in the city. Scott is the planner for the CRA.
Good evening. I'm the Planning and Development Director for our redevelopment agency. And tonight I just want to talk about a few of the larger projects that we are very excited that are coming about. And this first board is we're working on our phase 2 of the Marina project. And we're currently in negotiations with the proposed developer. And we are looking at a time schedule of August of this year, when we'd like to finalize the plans for the next portion of the project. And this is the existing event center here. It's labeled 0. And of course we have our park, which has been built. And the new plan proposes, if you've been down at the waterfront, we have some grass areas that are around the various paving and public spaces. And so those are proposed to become new waterfront restaurants. And you can see them on these boards, and I'll leave these here so you can look at them after the meeting also. And then adjacent to that, the proposal is to put a hotel right on the waterfront, and that would be under a Marriott flag, and they're looking at about 150 rooms for that. And then the larger buildings you see there, those would house 2 parking garages and then some residential above. Likely one apartment community and one would be a condominium type project. And right now we're working, negotiating for element 8, and that is located right on the old Spanish Court site, if you're familiar with that property. And that it's critical that we start with a public parking garage, because right now, when you go to the marina, all of the parking is right on the waterfront. And we know that that's really not the best optimum use for waterfront property. So we'd like to build a parking garage so that then we can develop the hotel and also the restaurants, which of course we currently have enough parking for what we have down there, but if we're going to bring in new restaurants and a hotel and a variety of other uses, then we're going to have to increase that. So we're looking at a demand of at least about 500 new parking spaces that we'd have to build in that first public garage. So, and the first phase, we're looking at bringing that to the CRA board in July and then City Council in August and September. So I know this project has been taking some time, but we are hoping to get that moving forward very, very soon. And this is an affordable housing project that I wanted to talk about. It's 12 townhomes, and it is just west of our Marina District. And it's along 11th Street. And this area has a variety of vacant property, which has been acquired in combination by the Riviera Beach Community Development Corporation and by the CRA. So we are partnering together to put our vacant property together to build this townhome project. And we really designed it to sort of set a new standard for what we'd like the neighborhood to become. And this project will line actually a whole block. So we're very hopeful that not only will it help improve property values, but it will bring both new affordable housing opportunities and some market rate ones. There's actually proposed to be 4 market rate units and 8 affordable units. And so that's on 11th Street, and if you want to see the site, it's just west of Avenue E. This is a project that I know there's been a lot of interest in, and this is the corner of Broadway and Blue Heron, where you have that old bank building that's been there for a long time. And that project has been, the existing building has been approved for demolition, so that will happen starting in August and finishing in September of this year. And then what we're doing is creating a new development site, and we'll be asking the CRA board and to put this project out, and we recently showed them this concept, and it was very well received. And we're looking at trying to activate the corner and really set a new standard for the kind of buildings that we're trying to attract along the Broadway and Blue Heron corridor. And this particular concept would include a parking garage, which is hidden, and it's hidden by about 70 residential units, and then part of what we're trying to do along the Broadway corridor is activate the street. So we want to have more active uses, more pedestrian traffic. The more people are out there, that improves the perception of safety. It also improves real safety. So we want to activate the ground floor with some retail, which is very limited, and it's very challenging to do retail in today's market with companies like Amazon. Everyone stays home and orders. But there is a lot of neighborhood commercial still. That's opportunities. So we'd like to do that and possibly a small restaurant or cafe space to try and activate the ground floor and bring a new opportunity for residents to come and live on Broadway, because of course that encourages the neighborhood commercial, the shopping. You can just go downstairs and pick up a loaf of bread or whatever it is you need. So we're trying to bring residential back to the Broadway corridor. And the approach that is proposed for this is to put it out to find a private developer who would come in and be the city's partner, someone who's very experienced in building these types of projects. So we're hoping that will get issued in the next couple of months, and then we'll evaluate the proposals from the private market. But there's a lot of interest, especially in residential right now. So we're very optimistic that we'll get multiple proposals to bring this concept to life. And the last project I'd like to go over, this is called Berkeley Landing. And as you can see, This is another project, and it's proposed around 30th Street on Broadway, and it's located on the east side of Broadway. It's on a vacant piece that was formerly a mobile home park. And this is another project that would really start to change the nature of what Broadway looks like. And this would include about 120 residential units. It's 3 stories. It includes amenities. Similar to what the concept is for the corner Broadway and Blue Heron, we're trying to bring the buildings up to the street in traditional design. And again, these would include live-work spaces all along the Broadway portion, which is like an opportunity for an artist to have both not only his where he lives, but also a studio. And of course, we're going to include street trees. And as a part of this project, and what we're also trying to do on a lot of our projects is incorporate more public space. And as you can see this shown here, this is some artwork. And this is the actual plan. So this project was approved by the CRA board, and we provided them a grant for $600,000. And it's now going through the development review process. But they've also received some state grants to help them build the project. And so we're very excited about this one. It should be starting construction hopefully by December. So the time frame for this one is soon. And we have a lot of other development opportunities along the Broadway corridor. So if we can establish some new projects, starting with this one, and then following up with one like this, I think that we can really start to not only change the vacant properties, but a lot of the existing properties will start to have more development potential, more value, and hopefully they can be redeveloped soon.
Scott, could you speak a little bit about the change in zoning that we might be seeing in terms of density and intensity?
Sure, yes. As a part of trying to stimulate redevelopment, the CRA board has approved Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, who is one of our regional partners, to come in and help us assess what kind of changes we can make to all of the zoning in our downtown core area. And what we're looking at is possibly increasing the heights, increasing the densities, and trying to make the properties have more value for someone to come in, purchase the existing property, and redevelop them. And we're working on trying to develop some incentives that would allow, if you were to move, rather than buy property and land bank it, we're trying to look for developers who are interested in moving forward quickly. So some of the incentives that they'll be looking at developing will include that if you build in the next few years, that you can get even more height or density. And right now we're limited to 6 to 8 stories along the Broadway corridor. So we're looking at trying to match some of the heights, or at least if you look at what the town of Lake Park does, they got a new project that they've approved. That's, I believe it's about 18 stories. Thank you. So where we're looking at, if it's right adjacent to that, possibly matching that, and then maybe creating a couple of other nodes, one in the Marina District, and then perhaps at Broadway and Blue Heron, where you could get up to 10 or 12 stories. And then, of course, part of what Treasure Coast is going to do is they're going to look at all the areas where we can increase the height and the density that are not going to affect, close proximity to single-family residential. And then any areas that are in close proximity, they'll implement some increases in density, but probably not height, since we don't want to have really large buildings adjacent to single-family homeowners. And that process will be beginning in July, and they'll be holding some public workshops to gain some input. We'll be updating both our CRA plan and at the same time changing all the zoning and the land use for our downtown areas.
Any questions for Scott? Thanks.
Yes, sir.
That's going to increase the traffic in that area. I don't know if you're familiar with Blue Heron, because it's on 3 traffic lights now to cross over Broadway and Blue Heron. So how is that going to impact traffic in the area?
Bringing new development will always increase the amount of traffic. Now, this particular project, of course, is north on Broadway.
That's beautiful. I'm talking about the one bottom. Right?
Yes.
We have the bottleneck now.
Yeah. That would increase. What we're looking at for this project is you would have an in and out on the Broadway side. and you wouldn't have, and you would only have an inn on the Blue Heron side. So you wouldn't have cars queuing up to exit onto Blue Heron, which would increase the wait time significantly if you had to wait for those cars to pull out. So there won't be an out on Blue Heron. And of course, all projects in that area have to go through concurrency review to make sure that the roads can handle the traffic. But I do know that both of these projects have concurrency. So yes, they do increase as we get more people living in the area. But in this particular project, we have looked at preventing anyone from leaving the project on Blue Heron. They would have to leave only on Broadway.
And just so you're aware, I've been working with FDOT to change the, as you may know, Frank, but maybe other people don't, I've been working with FDOT to change the timing on that light to give people a little bit more time as they're headed west, because that's been a real concern. We looked at the possibility of creating a right turn only lane, but that would cut too much into this property, and we don't want to, we can't, the property is not that big to begin with, so we can't really give up the property that would allow us to have a right turn only lane. So we're stuck with the 2 lanes going west, and we're working with FDOT. I think they've already done a little bit of tweaking with that, and we'll see how that goes. But I always make if I'm going west and going south, I always make a left at the bottom of the bridge and head back through those neighborhoods, if that's the way, sneak around.
The problem you have, Julie, is if you have only an entrance on Blue Heron,
Yeah.
okay, that means that you got 2 lanes going eastbound. You're going to tie up the left lane trying to get into the parking across Blue Heron, tying up that traffic coming westbound on Blue Heron. I think we need to really study the
Yeah.
traffic because you're going to impact it. Right
Yeah,
now, there's an
yeah.
impact trying to get into the corner bar and the little store on the left-hand side. And
Yeah, I know that. I'm sure that'll be part of what the developers do when they take a look at that property. Any other questions for, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment on the traffic. I think when you're planning these marina projects, I think it would be really helpful to keep in mind the issue of transportation, public transportation within the marina. I find it shocking that there's not a taxi service from the island to downtown West Palm. We shouldn't have to drive all the way around in a circuitous fashion when we could hop on a taxi at Sailfish or another docking point and then get to West Palm. That's the first point. My other question was relating to the potential zoning changes. Does that apply for Singer Island as well and this street outside?
It only applies to our downtown districts. So that's so that would be on the north and south side of Blue Heron on Singer Island, and it would also extend over to Ocean Walk property, although that has a separate restriction of 5 stories, so it wouldn't include the Ocean Walk property. But this complex here and the parking lot behind it are also downtown districts as well as the Sands Hotel. So it would just be limited to those properties. That analysis.
So this strip here could potentially be 10 or 12 stories is what I heard. Is that correct?
Right now, this particular property that we're in right now has a height limit of 8 stories. So we'll be studying if we could increase that, but I can't say that it's going to be significant height increase. I think that if you look along the south side of Blue Heron as you move to the west of this property, we have some single-family homes, so that's really going to limit the height. So you wouldn't get 8 stories, from here all the way down Blue Heron because it's right adjacent to single-family homes. That would be one of the areas where we might increase the density or the number of units, but still limit the height. So.
And then, sorry, last question. What's this situation on Lake Drive with the vacant lot coming off of Blue Heron here, going down Lake Drive? There's a vacant lot next to the community garden. My understanding is that property was sold, as was Yacht Haven and the adjacent property. So has there been any plans presented to the city, and if so, at what phase are they?
No, there hasn't been any plans, unfortunately. We were really excited about the previous plans that were approved. But unfortunately, the developer decided not to proceed, and he sold the property. We have been in touch with the representative from the new owner, and saying, hey, we'd like to talk to you about what you're interested in doing. But as of right now, they haven't indicated what they plan to do.
So why is the developer backing out on the project? What's the reason for
It's a private development deal, so I can't really say, what the reason was. Unfortunately, they decided not to build the project, which we were very disappointed because
It was a beautiful project.
yeah.
No, they had a special dispensation to do 8. I think it was 8, yeah. And it was a beautiful design. It was two towers such that you could see the ocean coming across the bridge between the 2 towers. It was really a nice design, but they chose not to do it. Mary Ann?
I know that all the development plans sound wonderful, but all I think of as a homeowner here is the traffic. The island has been overbuilt. The higher up you go, like Amrit, look how dense Amrit is. That's just one. And now if you take these other areas at high traffic volume, like the one that you showed us, the one over there, did you say that was 10 stories?
That's 8 stories.
All right, 8 stories. I mean, we only have a 2-lane road here, and the traffic is immense right now. It's very problematic. Just in front of the Hilton, we have 5 driveways coming out into north and south traffic. I mean, it takes a long time to get in and out. So when you're talking about development, I just wish everything would calm down, get a little lower, and think more about traffic. I've heard of these traffic studies being done, but then the towers keep getting taller and the development keeps spreading, and so whatever they're doing to study traffic is impacting the traffic negatively. Sorry, Scott.
That's all right. Okay, so noted. Thanks, Mary Ann. Any other questions for Scott? Thanks, Scott. I know you have somewhere else you have to be, so we will say thank you very much and have a good evening and happy Memorial Day. Thanks. Thanks very much. No, we have to, it's a concern. I mean, we need more, we have to, this is an FDOT issue that Mr. Evans will have to address. Toss the ball in his court. All right, Mr. Evans is going to speak about other development projects, other capital improvement projects. I hope he'll speak a little bit about our new city hall, our fire station, our library. We have all kinds of exciting things going on in Riviera Beach. Mr. Evans. Right.
See, Scott got out of here when she said Mr. Evans. I was going to throw the ball in his court. So first and foremost, thank you all for the opportunity to be here. We've got a lot of exciting projects happening in Riviera Beach, but I did want to touch base on some of the concerns that the community's expressed as it relates to traffic. We know that those are going to be issues that we'll have to work through. Conceptually, that's just a concept as it relates to what can be on that site. So as we go through the process to work with a prospective developer, that may change as it relates to the final design for that. That is the most that we conceivably can do on the property as of today. So we wanted to show the board this is the grandiose plan in the event we were to move forward with such a development. So that's just for context, just to put a little bit of context on that. We know that we have to be conscientious of traffic flow and traffic patterns and what are some of the challenges. But one of the things that is a big impediment to us is the train. The traffic stacks up because of invariably that train that goes through and blocks off or bisects our community at 4:35 to 5:35, depends on the day and time. So we know that's an issue. We will work with FDOT. When you have these particular projects that look to bring additional volume, FDOT is more willing to be amenable to some changes as it relates to the time in which persons queue up. So you may see some improvements. We are working on that, and we know the Councilperson Botel is advocating for that. So as it relates to city projects, where to start? So we'll start with 2129 North Congress Avenue. That's where our new municipal library will be. That facility is approximately 15,000 square feet and will have a cafe. It will also have some really cool, unique amenities and experience for persons. We're actually going to have a saltwater fish tank and a freshwater fish tank that will have an alligator. So we're truly excited about that. I know Councilperson Botel probably, she didn't ask me today, but the Walgreens, when's that coming down? So that is going to be the home of the new Fire Station 88. There is a heavy piece of equipment that's on that property right now, and we anticipate within the next couple of days, probably tomorrow, you'll start seeing some demolition activities occur. That particular station will be the home for our fire rescue department, but will be a modern station, will be the most modern station in Riviera Beach, and will be the only facility in our community that will be built to Category 4 hurricane standards, even maybe even Category 5. We will also have the opportunity to co-locate another fire company in the event we had to move personnel as we reconstruct some facilities. So we are excited about that facility coming online. We've done an intent to negotiate. We had a developer partner that is going to come design, build, and finance, and we're hopeful to actually be moving dirt on that site before the end of this year, and the fire station is anticipated to be turned over to us in October of 2022. So we're excited about that. It will be a 2-story station. The firefighters are already advocating to have a pole versus a slide, so we're working through some of those nuances. So you will also see in the back of the room this piece of literature that I think is very critical and important. One of the challenges in the city of Riviera Beach is all the city's infrastructure, for all intent and purpose, was constructed at the same time. And so they're all at the end of their useful life. And so how do you look to bring some of these facilities online, and what is the public's desire to pay for these, and how do we pay for them? And what is the mechanism that we use to get private sector or public sector support, whether it's through the state or federal government? So we are actually having a lot of workshops with our community that's going to start in June, and we're going to have a more robust conversation about the state of these facilities, but also some important information that the community needs to know. Dr. Botel, through her work with her tourism committee, and I'll steal a little bit of thunder from their presentation that they'll be sharing with the board, is that about $12 million annually on a conservative number leaves our community to buy goods, services, and commodities. So we know that that number is probably well over 17, close to $20 million annually, because we don't have some of the amenities that other communities have. And so when we look at our city facilities and we look at our placemaking, is how can we create the synergy to be able to capitalize on our location? So when we look at these municipal facilities, we're not just looking at them from the perspective as to we need a city hall, we need a library, we need a fire station, we need a police station. We're looking at how can we create the space where City Hall is on the campus with some other commercial partners or some other entities. And so we're looking at it holistically, but we're looking to create those spaces that are similar to other communities, whether it's Gardens or West Palm. And so we're going to be getting a lot of feedback from the community, because our intent is, after these workshops are complete, to bring it to the board and say to the board, okay, this is the input and feedback that we've gotten from the community. Where do you want us to go from here? Do you want us to go look at a municipal bond? Do you want us to look at a voter referendum? Do you want us to go to the private sector and see if there's partners that are interested in development? And where are these facilities located? Because that is an important discussion as to where is the most valuable assets that we have and where are they properly positioned. The city and the CRA have acquired a large amount of properties throughout our community. And traditionally, governments, in my opinion, are not very good landlords, and we should not take assets off the tax roll unless we have an intent to put it back and reinvest and partner with somebody. So some of the properties we have acquired are for some strategic discussions, but we have the Miami Subs property. The CRA will be closing on that probably in the next 4 to 5 days. We do already own the property behind that, the city, and so there's an opportunity for some synergy with regards to Jim Berry Park and those two parcels being unified for the purposes of a development opportunity. We have the old City Hall site, which is a vacant piece of dirt that people have probably saw the renderings of a potential home for City Hall. And then we have another parcel that's further up north on Broadway, 3501, which is a vacant piece of property that we're in constant conversations with prospective developers. So we've got a lot of conversations that will be happening with the community, because invariably it's going to be the community that's going to decide where these facility goes, and then how do we fund those facilities. We have to move now. One of the things we have seen is, as a result of the economy and the growth that's happening in the state, construction costs from last year are up roughly about 25 to 30%. So the longer we kick this proverbial can down the road, the more costly it becomes for the taxpayer. So we're looking to move with these facilities very quickly. With our Fire Station 88, we've already had preliminary discussions at where we're going to possibly locate Fire Station 86 and what the potential impact would be, because we know that the station that we have on the island is woefully inadequate to provide fire services in the 21st century, and it is not in the most ideal location for us to be able to accommodate the fire service. There's nothing in the fire service that ever gets any smaller. Their trucks get bigger, their equipment gets bulkier, and so they need a facility that can accommodate. Plus, during high tide or king tide, the water's basically at the door or at the rear of the facility, so there are some challenges there. The City of Riviera Beach, through the federal funds, the CARES money, we received roughly about, or the rescue plan, we will be receiving $7.5 million, hopefully in the next 30 days, and then the other $7 million, $7.5 million a year from when we receive the first allocation. The conversation that we're going to have with the board is looking to reinvest that in infrastructure specifically related to our water plant. We believe that that's a mechanism to allow for us to start the project and move forward with the activities. I don't know if staff spoke about the new water treatment plant, but our hope is in 36 months that we're able to deliver the state-of-the-art water plant. So we're moving very aggressively to be able to address that. You did hear Mr. Evans talk about the Marina Phase 2 projects. We're in the due diligence phase when we're looking at the condo development. So right now, we're in the process of getting a consultant on board to review their financials and to make sure that if we get into this arrangement, that they have the ability to deliver on the project. So we've got that. What else have we got going? Oh, we will be sharing with the board at the next regular meeting the Recreation Master Plan. And it's very interesting, the information that we got from our residents, because overwhelmingly there was a push for more passive recreation, more nature-related recreation, and that we're not just a football and basketball community, so, which is great, because I think when we look at our recreational offerings, we have to look at it holistically, but we have to look at our parks and how do we make our parks more conducive to what our community wants to see and making some strategic investments. So that's going to be coming to the board. So we've got a bunch of projects that are queued up and ready to go. We know that our public safety facilities are our core facilities. Right now, we have, and I don't know if I know Representative Hardy is going to speak to us at our city council meeting on the 2nd, but we have $1 million that's in play that we're hoping that makes it through the budget process for our public safety campus. What we're looking to do is construct a municipal police department and our fire department and have them as a public safety campus, with the emergency operations center being the top floor that ties those two facilities together. So if we're successful on that, that will provide some seed capital for us to move forward with our capital project related to that. But staff is working diligently. We're actually looking to get into the communities, law enforcement, and Major Lewis will probably speak on that. Once the youth empowerment program leaves the facility at Lindsay Davis, we will have a police substation in the actual community, and then we're looking at subsequent substations or something similar to that at other fire facility or other facilities throughout our community. And we've even had some preliminary discussions about some type of presence or some type of office over here on the island as well. So the chief and I have had some discussions about that. So all in all, things are moving steadily, but here over the next year, we can anticipate that our capital projects program and a lot of our facilities are going to be coming out of the ground. So our intent is to move as quickly as we can, to do so with as much community input and feedback and buy-in, and then address some of these facilities. But priority is certainly getting our wastewater treatment plan and our water treatment plan up and operational, and our public safety facilities, and then the other facilities will fall in line with regards to that. So a lot of good things happening, a lot of things I think the community will be proud of. Sir.
I don't want to piss you off.
I
think you're doing a good job, but I'm just, there's a part of me that says, and please don't get pissed off at me, if I had your job, we would not be looking at those 2 downed telephone poles that were cut down. You got to think of a way, creative thinking. When I spoke to the chief about this individual parking on the lawns of people along Pine Point, he said there's nothing we could do. And I read the whole code, and I found an ordinance that you cannot park on a right-of-way if your vehicle is in excess of 3/4 tons, and we started ticking. So I figured that out. So I'm thinking, if I could figure something out like that, you could figure a way out of get those poles either back up, move them over without paying that guy, but just get that. You should make a commitment and a promise to everyone here that we're not going to see those poles for another year. Because it's a disgrace. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace that we have to drive by them, pay $2,000 a month in property tax like me, and have to know that. I heard my wife the other day giving directions to someone that said after the 2 down telephone poles, make a right. So come on. I mean, you got to be able to think of something. I know I would.
Well, I can tell you I can't give an unlawful order. I can't authorize or tell staff to grab them because that is on private property. I'm trying as much as I possibly can to work with Mr. Lozman to see it from my perspective. However, that is somewhat challenging. We're trying. We've had multiple conversations with the attorney's office as to what are mechanisms that we can do to effectively gain some compliance. So from my standpoint, it's something that we're working with legal. I want to obviously resolve this issue as much as possible because I think there's a public safety concern. I think there is a aesthetic issue. Well, I know there's an aesthetic issue, and it's just been something that's been a thorn in the agency side for such a long time. So again, I'm trying as best as I can. I have to get the okay and the thumbs up from the attorneys, and as soon as I get that, I'll turn both keys simultaneously. But trust me, I get the emails from this gentleman quite often, and they're entertaining nonetheless. But I know it's an issue, and it's a sore subject for the island. But we're going to get it resolved.
Jonathan, I know we talked about this in the past. You can eminent domain for those 12 by 12, and then when he cut that pole down, that's probably we paid for those poles, didn't we, on the tax? So he knew full well he was destroying public property, even if it's on his own, which he let up there for 7 years. 7 years. Yeah. He left those poles up. It's like the old saying, once you have a neighbor and puts up a fence across your property line and you leave it there for years on end, congratulations, it's now your neighbor's property, no longer yours. So I just don't get it. He should have been arrested as soon as he cut down that pole for destruction of public property. You know what? Let the courts handle it.
Yeah.
They'll send a message.
Yeah.
Every time he crosses over the sidewalk, we went through this, that sidewalk, and he violates state statute, he should be ticketed along with Mr. Taylor. You cannot cross those divides.
Yeah, well, again, I don't have the authority to arrest anybody. It's those guys back there that have that authority, and they are not foreign to placing persons in handcuffs. So I think if they have to, and I think if it ever got to that point, they will certainly do that. But it's one of those issues that unfortunately continues to be exacerbated just by the nature of that particular individual. But we'll work through it as best as we can.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Beryl Namdar. I just wanted to thank Councilwoman Botel, City Manager Evans for being here, for your leadership, for everything you do for the community. We appreciate you. As far as the polls go, I'm a rabbi. This is beyond my payroll. But Would it be hard, just physically, to construct new poles either across the street or past the grass along the street instead of the private property?
We have looked at the price associated with that, and the price is roughly to relocate the vaults and all the infrastructure. We have a number, and I won't convey that number at this particular time. We're trying to find out what's the most cost-effective and efficient way to get to that particular point without having to cost ourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars to have to reconstruct, the 7 lights. So we are looking at it, and I have a number that doesn't make me warm and fuzzy inside, but we are looking at some alternatives and some options, and I've been in legal's office plenty of times concerning.
And I've been in his office plenty of
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
as you can
yeah.
imagine.
Thanks.
Hi. What's the status on the Ocean Walk lease? I think we were here about a year ago in a similar meeting, and they presented the redevelopment of that parking lot and that project, and then extending the lease with the city. So what came of that discussion, please?
So, unfortunately, we have this provision in the charter that prohibits leases for longer than a term of 50 years. The Ocean Walk has about 38 years remaining on their lease. The developer that shared their proposal with you all about a year ago had some conversations with us, and we had discussions with the board about the possibility of asking the voters to amend the charter to take out that particular provision. We are the only city that has that, and it has adversely impacted our ability to redevelop. So the developer said, Jonathan, if that doesn't change, I have a lease with you for 38 years remaining. I have pretty good occupancy numbers. It's not advantageous for me to construct and spend $20, $30 million. After 38 years, you have to go out through a competitive solicitation process, and I may lose the asset that I've just built, not 30-some years ago or what have you. So the juice wasn't worth the squeeze at that particular moment. We're hopeful that the board would reconsider something such as that particular provision, because it does adversely impact us from a situation where a developer wants to look at a long-term investment and says, I want to lease with the city for 75 or 100 years to ensure that I can, capitalize on the investment. And so unfortunately, that particular project was not able to move forward because of that particular provision. We have some challenges over on the marina as well that has the same type of provision. And again, that's not present in any other community, and it's stifled the redevelopment of a couple of parcels in our community.
So I know as one of the conditions in their agreement with the subleases, the commercial leases, they can't have competition with one another. For example, there can only be one sandwich shop and then one coffee shop. Does the city have any way of oversight in allowing more competition within this commercial property? Because what I'm seeing is a lot of these businesses are shutting down for when it's convenient for them. And, tourists come in, families live here around year-round, and they're being forced to drive off the island to find a coffee shop that's open on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., right? And so why are they allowed to have these businesses that are just shut down and empty? And can we do anything about it?
Yeah, I don't know what we can do. I have to look at the agreement and see if we have any enforcement, because I've had the same experience, and I'm like, there had to be a family emergency or something, because it was literally like around 8:30, 9 o'clock when you thought the coffee shop would be open, and you're like pulling on the door and you're like, something must be going on here. But we can certainly look into that, because there should be some consistent and uniform hours. It shouldn't be something that changes, ebbs and flows and what have you, without adequate notice, because it does adversely impact people coming to the beach. If they come to the beach with the intent that, hey, the Ocean Walk is there and I can go to these shops and restaurants, and so I'm not going to pack food for the day or what have you, and then there's things that are closed, and it's just not the reflection, and it's not the activity. We want to have constant activity and commerce happening to create the synergy that we want to see there. So it's something that we can look at from an enforcement mechanism, and we can also inform the entity that leases it from us. They may not know that some of their tenants are, selectively opening and closing at whatever time they want to.
Jonathan, I was just wondering, it's taken us a long time to get to the marina and some of these other new developments that you're talking about. And then we hear, when things go before the council, we don't always have the right information. Wouldn't it be advisable to have some ad hoc committees to allow people or a group of 5 or 6 or maybe off of the island to sit down to be privy to more things that are going on, so that when we're presented with maybe it's just a thoughtful piece or maybe something that you want to go, that we've waited for 15, 20 years for something to be developed at that corner, that there should have been more input from the community as opposed to just allowing us to see that. So do you think maybe committees could be formed or that could be helpful for you?
We can certainly form committees and have as many discussions with the public, but I can tell you that as we look to have a discussion with the community about $300+ million of facilities, unfortunately, I'm concerned about the number of persons that are going to attend, because we passed the $175 million budget and we get nobody that shows up in the meeting, or maybe a handful, maybe 5 persons. So when we have these discussions, I'm hopeful that this is a opportunity to show, hey, there's genuine community interest in the facility planning and the placemaking and those types of things. But we are trying to do everything in our power to get feedback from our residents. I can tell you the survey that we did last year got roughly about 600 responses, and Ms. Noel got probably over 1,000 responses this year, because she went to the vaccination site with a hard copy of the survey, and when persons were sitting there, they filled out the survey. And so we're all about community participation and feedback and information. We have no problem of having ad hoc committees or committees that talk about facilities and economic development and all that. It's just hopefully that the community does take some type of initiative and being involved in the decision-making process. So we're amenable to and interested in, and anyone that wants to work with us or hear us speak, we're game for it. We think it's valuable, because the more people that show up and participate in their government, the more the elected officials feel compelled to push things forward and to support initiatives. If they don't hear anything, then they're left to figure things out. So the more input and feedback, the better off we are as a community.
Thank you, Jonathan. We have about a little more than 15 minutes left, and I don't want to cut Chief Curd short or our fine police officers who have been waiting to speak. So I'm going to call Chief Curd up and have him give us a little bit of information about hurricane preparedness. We know it's the beginning of the season very soon. I just put something on Nextdoor and Facebook about being prepared. The first named storm is out there already, and so we want to be ready when the time comes. So, let's welcome Chief Curd.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? John Curd, Fire Chief, Riviera Beach Fire Rescue. Going to be giving you all hopefully what is my last COVID update. I've been giving COVID updates for about 1.5 years now, and hopefully that information has made a difference in what we've done here in Riviera Beach. As far as the numbers, they're steadily decreasing. I'm happy to say for the first time in a long time, the census tract data shows no hotspots in Palm Beach County, and we have no significant issues here in Riviera Beach. Please understand, when you go out and about during your daily activities, while there is no longer a mask mandate, there are individual businesses that can require patrons to put masks on. That's kind of been a very contentious item, but just kind of keep that in mind, where We're not completely out of the woods yet, but we are getting back to some sense of normalcy. As far as vaccinations go, happy to announce Riviera Beach vaccinated just under 10,000 individuals. Huge accomplishment for a municipality as small as ours. But in Palm Beach County, over 725,000 individuals have been received, or in the regimen, have at least received one shot. That makes up 78% of all eligible individuals. So Palm Beach County has far surpassed any of the standards that have been set forth by the state of Florida. The areas of focus right now that we're most concerned with is the 15 to 44-year-old age group. That makes up 84% of all new cases. What's happening with the health department is by the end of the month, all state and federal sites will be shut down as it relates to vaccinations, but the healthcare district will have mobile sites that are going to be going to activities or events. When we had the American Idol viewing, we had a vaccination truck out there, and we're going to continue to bring that truck into the community for individuals who want to get vaccinated. But eventually, our pod is coming to a close. So if you're out there and you want to get vaccinated here in Riviera Beach, if you can get there by 7, nope, they're closed. Tomorrow between 9 and 12, come on out, because that is going to be the last time we're offering first-round shots. When I left the site there today, we had done 3 people. So right now, the cost-benefit just doesn't match up. So we're going to turn it over to the CVSs, the Walgreens, your local practitioners to take care of that. They're also making a focus on individuals 12 and older. The healthcare district is partnering with the school board to have a mobile unit at schools where parents can get their children vaccinated right there at school. So let's talk a little bit about hurricane season. Here we are in hurricane season, and right now our EOC is transitioning, as Palm Beach County's is, from COVID to hurricane season. As you all know, hurricane season runs through from June 1st through November 30th, and we are expected to see an above-average season. Last year was a record-breaking year for the number of named storms, major hurricanes. I mean, you go down the list, records were set. We actually had a storm within 100 miles of our coast that reached winds of 225 miles an hour. So please be mindful that we need to be prepared. On our website, you can go to our link down below. We have a link to all of the hurricane preparedness items that you all need to take care of. Here on the island especially, know your zone. That's one of the things we like to preach in emergency preparedness. Understand you live in an evacuation area. So you need to have a plan in place today on what you're going to do when the mandatory evacuation order is given. One of the things that you need to also consider is if you live in a condo, talk to the condo association about updating the registry. One of the things that helps us is after the storm is over and we check on the condos, knowing who's home and who's not home. Some people go home for the summer, some people come down for the winter, but most condo associations should keep some type of updated registry on who's in town, and when people evacuate, who's evacuated. Back in 2017, me and Mr. Evans weathered a storm. It was pretty significant. We actually had an elderly woman on Singer Island who was in her apartment for 3 days, no food, no water, cell phone died, didn't have a backup battery, and she chose not to evacuate. But nobody knew she was there, and she couldn't call for anyone. She had fallen and fractured her hip. We found her 3 days later. So these are the things we want to prevent. Please understand that when we evacuate the island, we shut down our fire station. Our fire station is in no condition to weather a storm on this island, as water comes from that area, that marsh area behind the station into our bay. So we have challenges there as well. So know your zone, have a plan, build a kit, know where you're going to go, know what shelters you're going to go to. Make sure you check on your neighbors. If you live in a condo or if you live in one of the homes, check 3 or 4 doors down. Make sure you all are working together. Know who's there, who's not there, what their needs may or may not be. And the one thing I need to impress upon everyone, and I just learned this statistic, more people die as a result of post-storm activities due to carbon monoxide exposure than they do from the impacts of the storm itself. So please make sure if you have a generator, portable generator, or even maybe it's one of your elderly neighbors who just think they're doing the right thing by buying a generator, but really don't understand how to use it, maybe you can help them out, and we're always available. So please reach out to us. Last note is tomorrow, May 28th through June 6th, Florida Disaster Preparedness Tax Holiday starts. There are very specific items that are available for a tax exemption as it relates to hurricane supplies and preparedness on our website. If you go to hurricane preparedness, you can follow the links and find that information on what's available to you tax-free over the next week. Questions,
Thank you so
comments,
much, Chief.
concerns?
Any questions? Now, before I call up Major Lewis, I want to take one quick break aside. We are so blessed in Riviera Beach to have not one, but two county commissioners watching over us, our guardian angels at the county level. And one of them is here this evening, Omari Hardy. And I want to ask him to just say a couple of words about what's happening at the county level and anything you'd like for just 2 or 3 minutes.
It's okay. Whoa, sorry. It's okay. Mac Bernard and I look close enough alike. No, look. First off, I just want to say a few things. Y'all have a great team here in Riviera Beach, and I experienced that in Tallahassee because, frankly, you guys did a great job in hiring a great representative in Sean Pittman up there, and you have a fantastic state representative in Singer Island and Representative Caruso, and together with Senator Powell, that public safety complex, we were able to get $1 million in the budget for that. Appropriations of that size tend not to come to our community very frequently, so we're hoping that it survives the governor's veto pen so that we can move forward with some of these improvements that were discussed earlier today. I recognize that there are lots of water issues in Riviera Beach, and by the way, that's true throughout my legislative district, not just in Riviera Beach, Mangonia Park, Lake Worth. Lots of folks who are living near the water have a multitude of water issues, whether it's the age of the infrastructure, the mains, under the ground and under the water, or with sea level rise, which I know is discussed because of the public safety complex. You have sometimes sunny day flooding there. Two things on that front. We worked hard to try to get some of those water projects into the budget. Those did not make it in, but two things. There is money set aside in the budget, and this is more or less at the governor's discretion, and so I think working together with your representation there might be an opportunity to come back and get additional resources for these water infrastructure improvements on the water quality front. And then in addition to that, there was a piece of legislation passed this year called the Resilient Florida Grant Program. We're a state that's surrounded on 3 sides by water. Sea level rise is happening. And what the state has done is set aside money that local governments can apply for specifically to increase their resilience, right, to prepare for sea level rise. And I was concerned at the beginning when this program was unveiled because they had a scoring criteria in the legislation. High up in the criteria was the ability to provide matching dollars. Low in the criteria was a financially disadvantaged community. And so you could have a situation where 2 grant applications are exactly the same, but if the community has lots of financial responsibilities that they have to take care of, and I know we have a lot of infrastructural needs here, they may not be able to have all the matching dollars for the grants that they're applying for. Cities with less needs or with more money, those two things are kind of like a sliding scale, would have more dollars available for the matching grant, so they would be able to get that. We were able to work an amendment in on the last committee, which I sit on, State Affairs, so that there is an opportunity for smaller cities that are small by population or that are small by their budgets to apply. That stuff positively affects cities like Riviera Beach, Lake Worth, Mangonia Park, Lake Park, and so on. So that's going to be an opportunity going forward. This will be the first chance to apply for this, so we'll see how that goes. That will be administered by the Department of Environmental Protection. And so I just want to say y'all have a great team in Tallahassee. We would not have been able to come back with these figures in the budget without the team that y'all have built here with Councilwoman Botel, with your fantastic city manager here, Jonathan Evans, and with Senator Powell and Mr. Caruso and Sean Pittman. So you got good folks here and it's working.
State Representative Amari Hardy. Appreciate it, thank you. I knew that. So now, Major Lewis. Let's talk about public safety, policing, et cetera. Major Josh Lewis.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Major Lewis with the River Beach Police Department. I wear many hats with the department. One is which to oversee the amazing beach unit consisting of Officer Hoffman and Officer Summers. I want to talk about two incidents that took place over a 2-week period that should be of concern to everybody, but more importantly, I want to speak about the steps that are being taken to address them. The first incident took place at Ocean Reef Park and it involved a shooting. Ocean Reef Park is patrolled by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, but obviously it's in our jurisdiction. We are the first responders to the scene most times, and it has a direct impact, obviously, on our community. The second incident a week later was at Phil Foster Park, and it was a stabbing. We were the first on scene at that incident as well. Arrests were made in both cases. They were both detained by our units because we were the first ones there, being primary responders. Some of the steps that we've taken is to meet with command staff with the Sheriff's Office. Yesterday I met with Captain Palenzuela and a lieutenant. And what's nice is that the Sheriff's Office in this district, they have what they call their own kingdom, and they have the ability to utilize resources however they need to use them. And I have a good relationship with some of the command staff members there, so we were able to meet yesterday, and we have a very busy weekend coming up with Memorial Day. We have additional resources that are coming up that are going to be present, that are going to be in the parks, they're going to monitor parking, they're going to monitor the Ocean Mall. There's going to be abundance of Riviera Beach resources, but more importantly, the Sheriff's Office is providing probably about 25 additional resources that are going to be present to assist us. We're hoping not to have any repeats of what took place over the last 2 weeks that I previously discussed. After the Memorial Day weekend, obviously we need to take the steps necessary to ensure that this continues and it's not just a Band-Aid regarding what we're doing for Memorial Day. So we have plans over the next week to meet with their command staff, the technical people involved with technology. We're looking to put up different infrastructure to include cameras, LPRs, which are license plate readers, and the Sheriff's Office has stated that they're going to find funds to actually create a unit that'll handle parks. Currently, that doesn't exist right now, so it's nice to have partners that are willing to work with us, provide resources, and they have monies that'll actually be put in place to help with these issues. So although we did have some issues, we took some steps that we think are going to address them. We can't stop things from happening, but we certainly could do everything we can to ensure that they don't. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I have a question that relates to something that the gentleman over here first brought up, and that is the parking or the cars being allowed to go over sidewalks, which is against the law. Yet we are told, and I know that this isn't you, Josh, but I hope you send this message up.
Certainly.
We are told that the police have, quote, decided, unquote, not to enforce that law because they consider this a, quote, political situation. It is not a political situation. It is a legal situation. And my message is I do not feel that the chief or anyone in command has a right to decide what laws they are going to enforce. Singer Island people want that law enforced, and I hope that message goes back.
Understood.
And there's already been one accident there. Okay, because it's not just a law. When you haven't had any inkling to look to your right to watch for oncoming cars coming out for the last 30 years, and then all of a sudden you do. That's why there was already one accident there. So, you know,
What location is this so I could look into it?
He seems to be giving them a lot of latitude. For what reason, I don't know. And, you know, it's just, it's kind of, I certainly don't want to get the chief mad at me. But I can tell you that he came out personally, the chief came out personally to enforce an illegal fence that damage was done to. And when
did you do anything to the fence? And I said, you mean the illegal fence? That would be like if someone stole a car, and the guy who stole a car got the hubcap stolen, and he calls the cops for the hubcap. So he's giving that guy a lot of latitude, and he's not giving us much latitude. I got warned for trespassing on the non-trespassing side of the fence. So either this guy, I just don't want any problems, but I'm telling you, they're giving him a lot of latitude that they shouldn't be given.
So I want to speak briefly about the whole sidewalk and parking on the right-of-way. We had the discussion with law enforcement probably about 5-6 months ago, and we are going to bring the conversation to the board because we have to look at uniform enforcement consistently through the city. If we enforce that, we will have citations written by the hundreds, maybe even thousands, on the west side of the community. So we need to look at what is the best way to address this particular issue. Now, I'm not saying that there's not that silver bullet there, but we want you to know that there is certainly an impact to where if we look to enforce that to the T, these guys would be writing thousands of citations on a daily basis for persons throughout the community. Because unfortunately, if you look at some of the lot sizes and some of the older neighborhoods in our community, it was contemplated that they had one car. Now you have persons have 4 or 5 cars, and so you have cars that are parked, some on the sidewalk, some on the roadway, and so it's a lot more challenging and a lot more complicated than folks know about. But we are going to have the discussion with the board because nobody wants a rule on the books that they can't enforce, and then if there is an issue, what's the best way to effectively try to accomplish an amicable solution. So that's probably why you don't see a situation where they're, focusing on that particular issue, but it is something that we've had conversations about, and it requires now a policy decision from the policymakers as to how do you want us to resolve this.
In response to what you talked about, what I see happening is Singer Island is not a walking community or a bike riding community, and it's become very difficult to walk anywhere. Not only in this portion of and if we have to oversee sidewalks, I think that's a great idea because, for example, if you want to get from here as a handicapped person to the beach, you can't do it. The sidewalks aren't properly, handicapped accessible. And if you want to walk with children or if you want to ride a bicycle, it's become impossible. And it's not going to draw. I mean, not everyone can drive, and it's not pleasant to have to drive everywhere. It would be nice to have bike routes and sidewalks that are for walking and not for cars with their hung over the sidewalk so you can't get around the car. And if people are getting citations, fine, let them get citations. But it's not fair to the people who want to walk. Well, I mean, we should be able to walk on a sidewalk. There should be better sidewalks and wider sidewalks and bike paths. This is not this community is ridiculous. You have to drive everywhere. And it's a beautiful walking area. I mean, and it should be maintained as a beautiful walking area. Anyway, that's my whole piece to it.
Thanks. Anyone else? Well, I see the witching. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. The issues you have on the west side, you got people crossing over sidewalks, going into their homes, parking on the grass in the front of the house? Because the thing is, they have approved permits for their houses and their driveways and everything else. These two gentlemen here do not have any approval to build what they built. So the west siders have a house that, yes, it was built for 2-car garage, and if they wanted, I don't know what they're going to jump in the driveway, because I don't see many cars on the west side parking in their front lawn, but that just happens, a few of them do park in their front lawn. They have a legitimate house that was approved via permits, okay? They don't have anything that was approved.
But the law doesn't read that way. the law, and that's why it requires a policy decision to ensure that it's uniform and consistent, because you cannot create something that has carve-outs or targets a particular person or persons. So that's why it's a lot more robust of a conversation, and we're trying to find what's the policy that the board conceivably can look to institute that's not going to get challenged or have it something that we get sued and we lose. We want to make sure that whatever position we take a strong position, that it's something that's uniform and consistent throughout the entire community. But the law as it stands right now doesn't make that distinction, doesn't make that differentiation.
So just as a follow-up, when is the city committing to getting cameras on the island in the public spaces?
There are many cameras that exist presently.
Where are they? All right. But generally speaking, I mean, is
we
it
have over 80 cameras in the city, and there's approximately how many?
Are those cameras just recording, or are they using?
We have a 24-hour real-time crime center that actually monitors those cameras. We also have a program where private individuals and businesses can register, and we could see their cameras as well.
And if you ever want to visit that center, it's fabulous.
It's amazing. And we also have
of TV screens. They can see everything that comes on the island. They have license plate readers that can tell who's coming on the island.
not yet, no.
Somebody's in Ocean Mall, you're scanning all the faces, looking who committed a crime and all that kind of, like they did up in Boston and some other cities that highlighted.
Not yet.
What about the bridge going back and forth?
We're monitoring that, yes.
Okay, but I see that as a preventative measure to avoid, crime here. I don't understand why that's a secret thing. I mean, we should be having signs saying, you're on video. The fact that, you mentioned the two recent incidents that took place, Sergeant, but what you didn't mention was 6 months ago there was an incident where there was a shooting in Ocean Walk when someone opened up 8 rounds in a public space on a Sunday morning. And I think that should have been the trigger for impetus of change, not these 2 recent incidents. And we called for discussion at that time, and nothing happened, actually. I really want to know, that we're safer here. I take my kids to that Ocean Walk playground all the time. There's people smoking weed there almost every day, next to the playground. And that's not being patrolled or maintained. I understand there's some vagrancy in the park, and it's a big park, but that should not happen next to a playground.
Right. We did have some issues by the playground, and they did involve some of the homeless. There's certain laws that we have to follow. Obviously, smoking marijuana is not something that we allow. But we have taken steps to ensure that we are doing things where they can't congregate and they can't cause issues. I think recently we addressed the benches that were being moved. They're now bolted down. Some of the electricity that was able to be used, they're monitored now. And we have 2 dedicated police officers that are dedicated just solely for Singer Island. So, right. Well, we have a zone unit that's still here, so we still have a dedicated officer to this area. The 2 officers are additional. They're supplemental to the patrol officer that's on the island. So there's always going to be a 12-hour officer and a 24-hour officer, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Anything else?
More so on holidays. Like we're going to have probably 15 additional officers this weekend here.
Well, one last one.
Mr. Evans, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but those 2 light poles that are down, that have been down for so long, and they have the cones there, does the city own them, the DOT? Who actually owns them?
The light poles are, FDOT constructed the light poles and then granted them to the city. So conceivably, they're the city's light poles. So when the initial destruction occurred and then the subsequent destruction occurred, the chief had a pretty pointed conversation. Unfortunately, the items are on private property, and I can't go and retrieve them.
So because they're on private property, but they're owned by the city or DOT, whichever way you want to do that, they have no right to at least take the poles off for the safety of the private property owner. They can't take it off, not to replace them, not to replace them, but to take them off until it's resolved to a greater degree. They can't actually take them off because it's private property, but yet they own them. What would be the difference if a telephone pole fell on someone's private property? Now, naturally, that's going to be removed from a safety feature, right?
With somebody would want that telephone pole removed, but if I kick my ball over to your yard and you don't want to let me go retrieve my ball in your yard, I can't go grab it. So we're going to have to. I had a discussion with said individual, and they provided me verbal consent to remove it, and I said, you got to put it to me in writing. So I sent the email that said, hey, pursuant to our conversation, you said I can have our staff go ahead and collect the items, and he said nothing. And then I called, and nothing, and so they still stand there. So probably what's going to happen in order for us to collect those, we're going to have to go to court, and inevitably that's probably where it's going to end up anyway. So. Yeah.
See Frank Fernandez right after this meeting, and Frank will give you all those email addresses and
You can issue him something for all that garbage and debris that he has in the front yard of his house. It's the front yard. We don't see that on the west side. We don't see all those metal gratings in the front. Now he has the two blue chairs that are broken in the front. We got a lot of debris, so code compliance can go on there, on the property, and cite him and have him pick up all that garbage.
Well, I have to see if he has any, if it's already been cited, because there's been a lot of code compliance related cases associated with that project. So I'm gonna have to check with staff to make sure that, and see if they have already cited him for that. Because
the city has an open code compliance case against Lozman to remove the unpermitted fence and other violations at 4601 North Ocean Drive. We've responded to a petition to the Florida Building Commission, and we're awaiting a decision based on whether the city was authorized to put the fence permit back in review after it was issued by the building official without zoning's approval. The code compliance hearing was rescheduled to June 2nd on that one. Okay, 5101, code compliance has advanced its notice of violation against Lozman for the anchoring and mooring of his floating structure, prohibited activities in the wetland preservation area, and failure to obtain a valid permit. On April 27th, Mr. Lozman's attorney requested a special Zoom hearing as an accommodation. The city did not oppose it, and the hearing will be held via Zoom on June 2nd at 11 a.m. And then with regard to 5101, FDEP filed a petition for enforcement against Lozman in excess of $30,000 for the unauthorized filling of surface water and impact to natural resources for the fill and structures in the submerged lands. They are requesting that the court issue a permanent injunction for Lozman to remove any structures and fill and face $15,000 per day per violation. This is based on their December 1st, 2020 notice of violation and their February 10th, 2021 final order and Lozman's noncompliance of said order. And then with regard, well, there's another whole section on Taylor, but so we're doing things, and FTEP is doing things, and the Army Corps is doing things, so don't think that we're just, not. You should, again, right, okay.
I will have a conversation with the code compliance supervisor tomorrow and see if that's included. If it's not included, or it's explicitly called out, that it's addressed accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for being here. We usually stop at 7:30, and I know we've gone way beyond that, and I appreciate your coming out this evening. Thank you all at home for watching. We'll have another quarterly town hall meeting in September, usually the third Thursday. This month was a little bit off, but we'll see you in September. We will be celebrating World Ocean Day at the ocean on not June 8th, which is the designated UN holiday. We'll be doing something virtual on the 8th, but on the 13th, the Saturday after, we'll be celebrating World Ocean Day at the ocean. We'll have all kinds of interesting things going on over there, so please come out to the Ocean Beach and join us. Thank you. Have a good evening. Happy holiday.